Good morning and welcome to another video from the Wheelman. Today we're going to start filming a couple of different videos, so we'll probably split it across two videos. The first set we're working on has been a bit of a nightmare. Monday morning, typical, things always go wrong. We've got a set that's been dropped down and the customer has attempted to refurbish them themselves. Looks absolutely awful. I don't know what they've used, maybe they've used some sort of a paint stripper, or they've definitely sanded that bit there. Inside the tyre was about 6 litres of water, which had just gone everywhere, all over the floor, all over ourselves. So the last thing you want to be doing on a Monday morning is clean up all the water, horrible stagnant water, it's disgusting. We're going to obviously check the other 3 tyres, make sure there's no water in those, start getting the tyres off, get these straight into the acid, get them all stripped back to metal, and then hopefully we're going to expose a much smoother, nicer surface than what we can see here. Closer inspection of the other wheels, you can see he's already spent, well, he must have spent hours already getting rid of all this, because this was definitely as bad as the other one that we've just looked at. This is always the benefit of completely stripping the wheels like we do. We'll get rid of all the paint, all the lacquer, we'll be able to see exactly what the metal looks like underneath. I bet you as soon as these come out of the acid, they'll look a million times better than this. It'll be so much easier to work with as well. This is what it was originally looking like. So somebody clearly rattle canned the wheel, but the customers decided to go silver with these. I think it's going to be the best choice. You'll get to see all the design of the wheel, all the details. But yeah, we'll come back to these later. So this one has definitely got water in it. As you can see when we tip this, you can see water dripping out of it there. So, right, God knows how we're going to get the water out of this without it going all over the floor. Might be worth probably breaking the bead and seeing if we can just rock it back and forth to try and get rid of as much of that water as we can. God, what an absolute headache that was. Just took about 10 minutes. Right, let's try and get the other 2 tyres off now then. Sake. Yeah, everywhere again. Right. There's even more water here. What an absolute nightmare that was. So we've managed to get all 4 tyres off now, finally. I mean, what time is it? That's probably took the best part of about an hour to sort. I don't know why 2 of the tyres were absolutely filled to the brim with water, but we can have a closer inspection of the wheels. Now these tyres are off. There's actually not a lot of corrosion around the beading, which is surprising, considering there's so much water inside that tyre. One thing that is going to be a problem is this customer's clearly gone at this with like a DA or something and has left a lot of sand marks in the actual metal. Hopefully when it's fully stripped, it won't be as bad as it looks. But the problem we've got is when we hit it with a primer, it's going to follow the contours of the metal. So even though it's quite a high build primer, it'll cover a lot of the imperfections. It might not do everything we need it to do. in which case we might need to hand sand some of these areas, flash it with a powder and then sand it back again. We'll have to address that when we come to it, I guess. Next step is getting these into the acid, get them stripped. So we've just got the first wheel at the acid. I think this is the one that had all the Dremel marks. It looks like it down here, look. The wheel's actually in good condition, which is why it's so annoying when people decide to try and attempt it themselves, because they've caused more damage to the wheel now than if we'd have just had the wheel in the first place and obviously tried stripping it back to metal ourselves. Ryan's going to have a bit of a task on his hands, just trying to smooth as much of this out as he can. He might have to do some of these bits by hand just to nib off the sharp high ends on that. Get rid of any curb damage. I think there's a bit just down here, look. And then it'll get put into the blaster, ready for the oven to be powder coated. So we'll come and look back at these later once they've been blasted. So the first wheel's now fully blasted, got the hanging hook on there, ready to go in the oven shortly. Done a really good job of getting rid of all this, all the sand marks and the Dremel marks. Obviously time will tell once we've got the powder on it as to how much it's covered, but I think that looks really good. So hopefully the next 3 wheels will look the exact same. So we've just got another 2 of these wheels prepped. They're actually looking a lot better than the first one did. You can still see some of the corrosion just there, look. In the meantime, I'm just going to get 2 of these wheels in the oven, outgassed, ready for powder. First step, as always, is blowing all the dust off each wheel before applying a masking disc on the back of the hub and foil inside the borehole. We want to prevent powder from being sprayed on these 2 areas to ensure no fitment issues when the wheels are put back onto the car. Wheels are loaded into the oven where they'll outgas for around about 30 to 40 minutes. Once the outgas stage is complete, we're now ready to powder coat. We're going to start with a grey primer first, followed immediately by the silver powder coat. Wheels are loaded back into the oven where they'll bake until the powder has fully cured. We'll repeat this step for each wheel. I've had quite a lot of people asking for just a bit more detail about how we do some of the processes. So we've just powder coated this wheel here. What we've done is applied a primer around the entire wheel just to make sure any metal areas are completely sealed, they're not exposed. It just makes sure that it prevents corrosion when the tire's back on the wheel, when the wheel's back on the car. What we do is we put primer across the whole wheel and then we flash the colour, so in this case silver, across the face of the wheel. And you'll notice it slowly starts to melt. It looks lovely and smooth. It'll smooth out even more when it's in the oven. And all these areas on the wheel which were corroded or they had imperfections, bumps in the metal, a lot of that has now been covered by the primer, and then the silver, when it coats on top of it, they'll all smooth out together. When we take this out of the oven later, you should be able to see a really nice smooth colour and a really improved looking wheel, particularly from what it looked like when it first arrived, because obviously that looked an absolute state. I'm just going to get this back into the oven now along with the other one. I'm going to make a start on the other 2 wheels. Hopefully they're outgassed by this point, and we'll make a start on those as well. So just checking these last 2 wheels. Just check the temperature then, showing at 195 degrees, so that's great. It's been outgassing now for about 10 or 15 minutes. Just going to give it another couple of minutes just to finish outgassing. That's just the process of allowing all the impurities inside the metal, any gases, whatever it is, oils, whatever, inside the metal. Because it's porous, we just don't want those to seep through the powder that we apply on top of the wheel, because what will happen is if there's anything that's still left in there and it tries to escape, it'll have to escape through the powder that we're putting onto the wheel. So That's the last thing we want. You'll be left with pinholes all over the fresh, lovely looking powder if we were to do that. So as soon as that process is finished, we'll get those two back out the oven, into the spray booth, and then we'll start the powder coat process. The two that we've just powder coated just a minute ago, they'll be at temp, partially cured out, ready for lacquer shortly. So hopefully we can do those two and then move on to the two that need lacquering. In the meantime, I think probably worth talking through a few more of the processes that we use. So obviously we use powder coat guns to apply the colour, the paint onto our wheels. We actually use quite a few different powder coat guns. So most big operations might use, 3 or 4 different powder coat guns. We actually opt for 5, just to make our lives a little bit easier. We've got a dedicated metallic gun, so the silver that we've just used, that's a silver right there. We can clean this gun out. It takes about 30 seconds to clean out, and then we can swap it for different colours, so metallic greys or whatever. But this is just purely for metallics, just to make sure there's no contamination between colours. We've also got a dedicated gloss black, so it only ever has gloss black on it. It's really important that we don't get any contaminants in the black. That'd look ridiculous if it did. So we just have a dedicated gun for that. We also have 2 dedicated primer guns, one that's black and one that's grey. So we always make sure we prime every single colour that we do before we apply, every single wheel that we do before we apply the actual colour that we're powder coating. So in this instance, we've done a grey primer followed by the silver powder coat. And then on the end here, we've got the lacquer. We use an acrylic lacquer, one of the best lacquers that you can get. It's really crystal clear. It's got the best UV protection. It also looks the glossiest as well of any of the different types of lacquers that you can use. Everything else we use is polyester. The lacquer's the only thing we use that's acrylic, so it's so important that it doesn't get mixed in with these. It's why we keep it a little bit more separate than the rest. It's really important as well when we're powder coating that it's extracted properly, so it doesn't linger in the booth, because if it does, it has the possibility to contaminate these other powders. You can get instances where some of them will react with each other, which again, you don't want that. You could literally spend hours prepping and stripping all the wheels, getting to a point, and then the final stage of the powder coat process, which is lacquering, you could then come to that stage and then ruin the entire thing because you've got contamination in your booth. So it was a bit of a risk moving on to acrylic lacquer, but it gives us the best coverage. Like I said, UV protection, all those things. It's so important that we use acrylic lacquer. It was the best thing we did moving to it, but it was a huge worry when we initially moved over, just because everything else we use is polyester. And if you speak to anyone in the trade, they'll always say it's a real risk having acrylic and polyester powders used together in the same booth or the same environment. So it was really important that we got that correct when we moved over, but never look back. It makes our whole process really streamlined, really quick and easy. This is why we can, in most cases, do a next day turnaround service. And it's made everything so much easier. Less cleaning out. Pretty much the only gun we ever clean out is the metallic gun, just because obviously we're changing between colours. But other than that, only when we swap the box over do we give it a quick clean out. Same for the primer guns, and also same for the lacquer gun as well. Right, that's enough waffling. Back to work. The next 2 wheels are fully outgassed and ready for the primer and silver powder coat. The first 2 wheels are fully cured and are now ready for lacquer. We start from the back of the wheel and work our way to the front, making sure to coat the entire wheel. Wheels are then loaded back into the oven for the final bake cycle to allow the lacquer to flow out and fully cure. We'll repeat this step for each wheel. Wheels are then cooled down before refitting the tyres. A standard valve stem is snapped into place before mounting the tyre. With the help of the tyre machine and Ryan's experience, every care is taken to ensure the wheel isn't damaged during this process. Tyres are inflated before moving on to balancing. The balancer spins the wheel and tells Ryan exactly where to place the weights. Right, so we've got the tyres back onto these now, and these have come out amazingly well. So have a quick look. So if you remember, all this, the paint was completely chewed up, where they'd obviously attempted it themselves. Sand marks everywhere. We seem to have done really well at managing to get rid of a lot of that, a lot of the sand marks. So Ryan's prep was fantastic there. Also, the coverage with the powder seems to have got rid of a lot of the imperfections that we saw in the beginning. Considering how bad they were, really happy with how these have come out. So hopefully the customer's going to be really pleased as well. We've got them balanced, we've got the tyres shined, and we're just waiting on now the customer to collect the wheels. We do love a transformation. I think the customer's opted for the right colour here. Let us know what you think in the comments below. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you'd like to put your wheels in, we're based in Langley Mill, Nottingham. All of our contact details are in the description below. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you again very soon.